Hi, welcome to Between Two Fires. My name is Matt Kilmer, and today I'm going to be talking about fires as usual, but specifically the increasing wildfires, specifically in Northern California. These fires that have been increasing in variety have impacts on the wilderness, the communities, and the people who live in the surrounding areas. I live in Sacramento, so this has always been a sort of problem for us as I've had to miss school in the past due to too much smoke being in the air. And this always got me wondering, why has there been this surge of fires? Because as I was younger, this was never really a problem. I never had to miss school due to too much smoke being in the air. And as I looked it up, I realized there is a clear connection between the wildfires and droughts. As the environment becomes more dry, the trees obviously die off and leaving a lot of dry debris on the ground, which then causes it gives the fire a lot more ignition to start and to become huge, like they have in recent years. And then also, which causes these fires, is just the aridity of the air. The air is just so dry that it's causing, like I said, all of this debris and these trees and these bushes to start kind of crumbling up and just looking a bit like Arizona now. But yeah, and then once they start to set, there's so much just debris in the area because we're not doing a good enough job about staying on top of cleaning up the dead debris. However, I've noticed in recent years, I have friends and I've seen through research that they're working harder now to clear this debris, since these fires have becoming a insane problem, specifically in California in recent years. As well, according to a source, the period between 2018 and 2020 was actually the driest period in the world's history since the 1500s, which is pretty insane. And this is definitely due to global warming. The global warming is basically caused by the increase of greenhouse gases made into our atmosphere. These greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, are all released by different human-related activities, such as coal mining, oil rigs, cars, even agricultural, such as cows, which release methane, which gets into the atmosphere, which then causes which creates more albedo, which creates the water to become more hot. And essentially, this is what's creating the atmosphere become more hot. And in 2020, another pretty crazy fact was that there were 20 main fires, and 15 of them occurred in California, which shows that basically California isn't doing a pretty poor job of trying to stop these fires from even beginning in the first place. And then another stat, which is pretty sad, is that 88% of these wildfires are actually caused by human or human-related activities, such as just people not putting out their cigarette and they put it out in some dead grass, or people or a PG&E or an electrical box exploding, which catches the dead grass as well. And speaking of the PG&E box, the biggest wildfire in American history was the Paradise wildfire, which occurred not too far from Sacramento. It's about a 45-minute drive away. This occurred in Paradise, as I said, and it's occurred in 2018. This is famously known as the Camp Fire. And it's basically the most deadly fire in American history since 1918, killing 88 people. Paradise is located not too far from my house, as I said. The fire started from a PG&E box exploding, which I said is one of the main causes of these fires in recent years. And then within 24 hours, the entire city of Paradise was just engulfed in flames. And then they lost $10.4 billion in damages, which is absolutely absurd. And then as a Sacramento resident, I'd actually didn't experience the same pains as people living in Paradise, but I remember the smoke was probably the worst I've ever seen it, because we live in the valley, so all the smoke essentially just flows right down and just sits on top of us in Sacramento. But so then I decided to interview my mom. It's because she has lived in Sacramento essentially her whole life, and she works as a nurse. I thought it'd be smart to interview her and see what she has to say about the increasing wildfires. And so one of the main questions I asked her, which is pretty important, was, has a fire directly affected your living situation? And luckily, it hasn't affected our living situation back in Sacramento, but we do have friends who have been affected and have had to evacuate their homes. Luckily, their homes didn't end up getting burnt down or anything, but we've had close scares with friends and stuff like that. Since we live in more the downtown area near Midtown. And then we never had to relocate, as one of the questions I asked. We never had to relocate. And then she works at the hospital, so I asked her, she had to stay home. She should stay home from work for fire-related reasons, and it was pretty surprising. She actually has, even working at a hospital, they can't afford to risk their workers become sick, and yeah, essentially that. And then we haven't donated to any fire-related causes, which is one of the questions I asked her. However, we would like to. We probably just don't have the financials just to be donating to that kind of stuff. And then I asked if her income has been affected by the fires, and it's kind of sad, but it actually has positively affected her income, since that she is now spending more time having to work with the patients. And then one of the final questions I asked her is, working in the hospital, has she seen more fire-related injuries? And she said yes, specifically in the 10 to 15 years recently, she's seen more people coming in, especially firefighters, having to deal with these fires that are increasing in huge variety. And then this brings me to our next topic, which is all the damage to the buildings, which is all these fires are causing. These areas, which I talked about in the beginning, contain large amounts of dead grass, which as well, there's a lot of, up in Northern California, there's a lot of wooden houses in the woods. So this basically causes much more ignition for the fire. And then once this fire reaches like a certain point, it essentially becomes almost impossible to put out, with the helicopters dropping water, and just the helicopters and the planes dropping water, as well as people on the ground trying to put it out. It's essentially impossible at some points, which you kind of got to prevent it from reaching a certain point instead of trying to put it out. As well, another fact, between 2000 and 2013, over 10,000 buildings have been destroyed due to wildfires in California. And then the next closest state to this would be Texas with 2,000. So this just shows that specifically, as I said before, specifically in Northern California and in California, the wildfires aren't being contained, and we're just getting ripped up essentially by all these fires. And then of these 18,000 buildings which have been destroyed in total in the U.S., 54 of those were homes, which is pretty sad. People are having to relocate and having to rebuild their homes due to this. And then another bad effect would just be how the lung damage due to smoke inhalation. Basically, people, as there's more smoke in the air, people are now engulfing this smoke and then getting into their lungs, which kind of sits there. And essentially, just people are coming down the line. You don't see it like right at the time, but then in about 10 years or so, people are coming in with more lung-related diseases. For example, as a source I had, which they tested adults from many different areas in the surrounding areas like Sacramento, Lake Tahoe, and for cardiovascular diseases. And then according to this study, the wildfire smoke and exposure to the life-threatening diseases has actually increased the amount of people with these lung diseases. And yeah, so I just think that this wildfires in Northern California is an extremely important issue, and something that really affects me and is really important to me and my family. And it was really interesting and important learning about this, and I hope you guys learned as well. Thank you.